Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And it seems like a couple of extra class changes have slipped through the cracks before this week's maintenance, which is looking like the servers are going to be down for a while. But in this class update, they looked at rogues, holy paladins, resto druids, disc priests, mage, mystery monks, demon hunters, windwalker monks, and outlaw rogues specifically. And some of these changes could have some big impacts on that massive previous list of changes that I will have linked to my video covering at the end of this one. But these are a couple that are getting stitched on towards the tail end of it, and these are changes that you really want to be paying attention to. The first big one is for mages. Now for Frostfire Mage, they are looking at the Ice Nova proc. So right here it says the Ice Nova proc is going to be at 125% effectiveness, down from 200% effectiveness. Now I don't know if this is speaking only of the damage, because to my understanding, when it was previously at 200% effectiveness, it was still the full duration root effect. So this probably is still going to be rooting. It's just not going to hit as hard. So a bit of a damage loss for Frostfire mages specifically, but it's still going to be a really big problem as far as the root is concerned in PvP, even despite this change. For Windwalker Monk, you guys are getting some buffs. Your Mastery combo strikes, your abilities are going to do 14% more damage when they are not a repeat of the previous ability, up from 12%. So really rewarding you for that hit combo gameplay, which is a staple of Windwalker Monk. I really like that. And one of your talents, I believe, is also getting buffed. Rising Star. Rising Sun Kick's damage increased by 15% and critical strike damage increased by 10%. Rising Sun Kick damage increased by 15, up from 10, and its critical strike damage increased from 12. Now, Windwalker Monk has been through quite a bit of a roller coaster, I would say, on the beta. I was originally, saying that was probably going to be the #1 spec at one time, and then it just randomly ran through the ringer, and it ended up being really not a top performer, especially like in the pre-patch, although maybe that's attributed more to the armor changes specifically in PvP scenarios. But it felt like it kind of fell off really hard, and now it's starting to get a lot of changes every time. We're seeing Windwalker buffs, Windwalker buffs, Windwalker buffs. So definitely is a specialization to keep an eye on. Now, Rogue for Outlaw, they're buffing your Mastery effect, which is your main hand attacks have a 30% chance to trigger an attack with your offhand. That will deal 0.1% of attack power as physical damage. This is going from a 0.036 modifier to a 0.0523 modifier. I don't know how they come up with that number to calculate that number. It would be really interesting video of like a deep dive internal, even like sit at the round table with the devs or whatever it is that they do, to figure out why they come up with those numbers. Because I can't, that number looks bigger, so I assume it is better, but it doesn't seem by much. Okay, it doesn't seem by much, all right? It's like 0.02 better, but it's better. And Outlaw Rogue, obviously, Rogue specifically saw a lot of nerfs with Gouge cooldown going up, Kidney Shot cooldown going up, although there are some other changes to Kidney Shot in this update list that is going to be important to take into account. But they're obviously going to need to be compensated a little bit as far as damage, so this is a little bit of a minor increase. I don't think it's going to be a huge one for Outlaw, though, as opposed to like some of the other changes that came for it specifically. Now, for Vengeance Demon Hunter, they're nerfing Fiery Demise. Fiery Brand also increases fire damage you deal to the target by 20%, down from 25 specifically. Now, all of the tank specs have been getting buffs on damage, like a lot of buffs. Remember that in PvE, they're completely changing the game. They want tanks to not be as self-sufficient, so healers have to spend a little bit of time worrying about mending your wounds, but they're also compensating you with a lot of extra damage. So maybe this is a little bit of a rewind on that. Maybe they went overboard on Vengeance specifically, but Fiery Brand, not really going to be maybe too big of a deal. I think you have one way of AoE applying this. It's been a while since I played Vengeance, so maybe in those scenarios where you AoE applied it, this is going to be extremely noticeable, but I think in like a single target situation, it's not going to be as big of a deal. Now, Fellscarred, Demon Hunter hero talents have been getting buffed more recently, but it looks like this is a pretty significant nerf on this one. And Demon Hunter outside of Rain from Above, which for whatever reason, if you have not played Rain from Above in PvP, you're missing out on what I would consider like the most powerful ability in the game. I don't know what it was, but yesterday, every tick of Rain from Above was doing like 30% of my health. It was like 3-tapping my Warlock. It was fully geared, and I don't know what that is, but outside of that ability, Demon Hunter, not like extremely top performer at the moment. And it looks like you're getting hit pretty hard here with this one. Your blades burn with Fel energy, causing your Chaos Strike, Throw Glaive, and auto attacks to deal an additional 35% damage as fire over 6, down from 60. So almost a 50% nerf to that effect on Felsguard. And Demon Surge, though, is getting a buff. So your AoE is going up. Single target looks like it's going to be going down. And maybe this is also in line with the fact that they're nerfing maybe there's like a fire damage modifier synergy here between Vengeance and Burning Blades, Fire Demise and Burning Blades. But Havoc also has this, and it also says Havoc. So I don't know, and Vengeance. And they could have specifically nerfed this for only Vengeance if this was like some sort of synergy issue with them, Vengeance having fire modifiers and Havoc not. But they did nerf it for both. So it's going to be a bit of a loss there. But your AoE is going to be going up with Demon Surge. Metamorphosis is now causing Demon's Bite to generate a 15 additional Fury. While Demon Form is active, the first cast of each empowered ability induces a Demon Surge, causing you to explode with Fel energy, now dealing 200% of attack power, up from 170 fire damage to nearby enemies. AoE up, single target a little bit down. And also Flamebound, Immolation Aura has a 2-yard radius increase, but only a 25% increased critical strike damage bonus, down from 40. That seems like a big nerf. Out of all the nerfs that I've read here, that seems like a very big one specifically, especially if you're running any sort of Immolation Aura focus build. So maybe, I'm not sure how big of a deal this is. If it means, I mean, obviously if you're getting into Metamorphosis more frequently, maybe it's equalizes all of the damage out. It's not too big of a deal. But if you're not able to get into Metamorphosis as frequently, then it seems like it's going to likely be an overall net loss. Mage is receiving even more nerfs here with the Frostfire Mage Tree. This is a talent that I pointed out early on. It's getting a PvP modifier, which is the Imbuing Warding, which basically means you get 2 barriers for 1. It was like Triune Ward, which we already saw in Shadowlands in PvP scenarios completely destroy the meta and completely take over. So I'm glad that they're nipping this one in the butt before it comes out. It's going from a 100% value in PvP to a 0.6, so it's like a 40% loss in the amount that it's absorbing. And for Spell Slinger, your Ice Barrier can absorb up to 50% more damage based on your missing health. This is another thing attributing to Mage's really excessively high survivability. It's going down from a 100% value to a 50% value in PvP specifically. So I think these changes around the shields are really good. Nice premeditated changes that are going to be really problematic in PvP. I like the direction that they're going with all of the self-healing mechanics for the damage dealers. Got to keep going on. I don't think that the work is done in that regard, but it is definitely going in a solid direction with that. Now for Mistweaver monks, this change was a bit harder for me to keep up with, but I'm assuming these are all buffs. So Vivify is going from a 6% to 20%. So I assume that that's a buff of that number. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but it seems like Vivify is getting a pretty juicy buff. And Restoral is also getting a juicy buff, going up from 1301.8 to 1497.08% of spell power, and it's still going to clear off all harmful poison and disease effects. So, and Revival equally getting a buff. So Revival and Vivify. Mistweaver obviously in Battleground Blitz, really powerful healer, but I think in other areas of the game it's falling off. So I think if Vivify receiving a bit of a buff here is definitely a good idea, assuming that that's what this is. If it's not, I apologize. I don't know why the changes are listed out like this. I would like them to be listed out as they usually are, but this is just the best that I can do with what we've got. Now, Resto Druid looks like it might be getting a nerf, specifically to its core ability Regrowth, which you spend a lot of time doing in Tree of Life, going from 44% down to 22%. So it seems like a 50% reduction on that specifically. As well as Deft Touch, which is reducing the cast time of Healing Touch and Regrowth. Well, you don't really hard cast it that much. I think it's more the direct healing, especially in Tree of Life. That's going to be a big, more felt. As well as Swift Mend, new effect, value minus 10%. So it looks like Swift Mend might be getting a 10% healing reduction, and Regrowth might be getting a 50% healing reduction. Now, Resto Druid got a lot of really big buffs before this, which I was really surprised to see. So this is probably them realizing, oh, wait, Resto Druid didn't need these big numbers. We got to dial back some of them. So Grove Guardians is going down from 42.5% of spell power to 38%. So about a 5% loss on your Grove Guardians. Your Life Bloom is going from 270% down to 237%, which is a pretty significant loss on Life Bloom specifically. This is all targeting like core Resto Druid healing output abilities. Tranquility, though, is getting a buff, going up from 236% of spell power to 271% of spell power, as well as the Hot is getting about going from 6.8 to 7.9. And Wild Synthesis, which is the wild growths that proc from the Force of Natures, are going down from 38% of your spell power to 34% of your spell power. This change for Rejuvenation, I don't know how to tell what this means. This is just lingo that's beyond me. It's like cost changed from 2.2% of base mana /5%/5%/5%/5% mana to 2.1% base mana /5/5. So to me, it's like they reduced Rejuve by 0.1%. And all of these extra 5%, I have no idea why they're there. This is the only number that's different with the language. So Rejuve's a little cheaper, but all of your main healing abilities got pretty significantly chomped on this update. Now for Holy Paladin, core passive, it looks like Crusader Strike is getting a bit of a buff from 45 to 58, specifically here for Holy. And you're getting a bunch of talents that are just getting repositioned. And I don't play enough of Holy to really understand the implications of whether or not this is good or bad. So if you're Holy Paladin, in the comments down below, let us know here. But Divine Revelations, which is empowering your infusion of light, Flash of Light heals for an additional 20%. Holy Light and Judgment refund your maximum mana, has changed positions. Holy Infusion has changed from talents to uncategorized. So they've removed Holy Infusion, but buffed Crusader Strike damage baseline. And then Liberation, Word of Glory and Light of Dawn has a chance equal to your haste to reduce the cost of your next Holy Light, Crusader Strike, or Judgment by 6,000, up from 4,000. I don't know. Are Holy Paladins going to be running a lot of haste? I don't remember Holy Paladins playing haste. They're trying to make it less of a bad stat. Moment of Compassion. Your Flash of Light heals for an additional 50% when cast on a target affected by your Beacon of Light. This talent has moved around. And Resplendent Light. Holy Light heals up to 5 targets within 12 yards for 8% of its healing. Has also been relocated. Tower of Radiance. Casting Flash of Light or Holy Light grants 1 holy power, has also changed positions. Now, Holy Paladin has been getting nerf. So I don't know if this is following the same trend where they're repositioning these so you can't get as many of the powerful ones all at once, or this is them dialing back on that or something. So if you're a Holy Paladin, let me know, but those are the changes specifically for them. Disc Priest, I have no idea how to understand this because they've listed a bunch of abilities that Disc Priest don't have, like Void Eruption and Shadow Crash and Void Bolt. So I don't know what that is. But basically, core passive went from a -5 to 0. So I'm assuming this is like a 5% increase on some of its abilities. But then they listed literally every single priest ability that even Disc Priests don't have. So maybe you're getting a 5% buff on all of your abilities, and maybe you're not. This is too difficult for me to understand specifically. And now for Rogue, Assassination Rogues, you're going to like this. Deathstalker's Mark is getting some buffs, going up from 40% to 50% for Ambush and Mutilate. And Shadow Strike from Stealth, same deal here. Fatal Intent is also receiving a significant buff, I think, unless this is like a typo correction. It's going from 0 to 18% of attack power. And this is the thing that's really strong about Assassination even right now. You can just have a bleed on you, and when you dip it too low, that thing just destroys you. You just disappear from the game. So really big buffs for Assassination. Follow the Bond is getting buffed. So Black Powder will deal 30% additional damage while 3 or more enemies are afflicted by Rupture. So just a bit more AoE. And auto attacks against marked targets deal an additional 25% attack power as plague damage. So Deathstalker Hero Talent is just getting buffed a lot. And then after Deathmark expires, gain 30 seconds of 30% increased nature damage, up from 20. And Moment of Despair. If you critically struck with Shuriken Storm, increase the critical strike chance of Fan of Knives or Shuriken Storm or Crimson Tempest, and critical strike damage of those abilities by 32%. So just buffs all around for Assassination Rogue specifically. And finally, Kidney Shot is going up to an 8-second duration. This is likely only in PvE. Now, we saw the cooldown go up to 30. I think what the goal with this is that they're trying to turn it into Chaos Nova. So there's a talent that rogues can take that makes Kidney Shot AoE, but it's like a percentage of the overall stun is reduced. So they're probably trying to turn Kidney Shot into Leg Sweep or into Chaos Nova, into Shockwave, some type of AoE stun, because Rogue didn't have that. And the single target stuns are really good in PvP, but in Mythic Plus, you care about stopping as many monsters all at once without losing damage. And Rogue couldn't really do that, right? You'd have to vanish and only cheap shot every single mob and you'd lose all your damage. So this change is likely them saying, well, it's going to be 30-second cooldown, so it's about the same as all the other AoE stuns. Still slightly lower, though. And the trade-off of that is that you have to spend combo points. But if you spend max combo points, you're going to get a full value AoE stun, and maybe that's going to make you more competitive in Mythic Plus. Given the fact that they're buffing all the Rogue damage, and they've got this massive stun change, that has to be what I'm thinking that they're thinking for Rogue and PvE. And in PvP, I'm sure they're going to add a PvP modifier, because we've already seen 9-second Kidney Shot multiple times, actually, multiple expansions, and maybe they've learned the lesson there that that's not really going to be a great idea. And I'd only assume that the PvP modifier just isn't on this like Wowhead data mining pulling of the changes coming through. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. As always, if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, smash the subscribe button. And other than that, I will see you in the next video.